Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is, for the second time, Kunal Chakara. Kunal is a holistic health and wellness guide exploring the intersection of science, spirit, and storytelling to unlock human potential. Welcome back, Kunal. It's such an honor to have you on again, brother.
Honored to be back, bro. This is fun.
Last time we covered Kunal's awakening journey. We talked about Muji and the Montes Haja ashram, as well as some beautiful stories and wisdoms were spoken in that first episode together. So, in this one, our intention is to cover supplements and wellness, importance of sleep, sleep protocol, methyl blue, Shilajit, nicotine, CMOS, and fatherhood, as well as all kinds of other supplements that might come through that and other things. So we're just staying open.
I love it.
I love it, man. So can you maybe start us off with how your supplement and wellness journey kind of started?
Yeah, totally. I would say it really started for me back in 2009 with the paleo diet. It's funny, I have a friend of mine who was just joking yesterday with somebody, telling them that I was paleo before anyone even knew what the word paleo was.
Uh-huh.
Which, of course, the word paleo, Paleolithic era has been around forever. But in regard to the paleo diet, yeah, it was pretty early on. I was 14 or 15 years old, and I was looking for a way to lose weight, honestly, just so I could look better and look healthier. And, I was like a 14-year-old boy going into high school, and I wanted to lose fat and feel healthier in my body. So, fortunately, I had a computer at home, and I just started going down these rabbit holes on these old forums. This is, I mean, years before we had anything like ChatGPT, so you kind of had to dig through the internet to find good information.
Mhm.
And so I'd find myself on these like longevity forums, and eventually I wound up on marksdailyapple.com. So like the founder of, basically, he's someone who popularized the paleo diet really early on. He was the founder of Primal Kitchen and was like the original nutrition guide on P90X way back in the day.
Oh yeah, okay, I know that guy.
Yeah, and so he had this website called Mark's Daily Apple, and I think I was 15 years old when I found it, and it was just chock full of these incredibly written articles with a lot of like evidence-backed perspectives on healthy eating and what to eat and what our human body was capable of digesting and how we had evolved to eat, and what we, like, our ancestors had evolved to consume, and how we, went through that journey and then became evolved to where we are now. And it lit me up. I was so inspired by it. So I started the paleo diet really early on, and then from there, I think just more research and more exposure to the health and wellness world, and I started supplementing. And back in those days, it was like omega-3 fish oil and I think magnesium maybe. But really, it was like I was taking the supplements that are kind of mainstream popular, but I didn't really know what they were doing in my body or how they were affecting me. I just took them because I thought they were good for me, and I had read some articles on how they were beneficial, like the EPA and DHA was good for the brain, and the anti-inflammatory benefits of fish oil and omega-3s, and how our ratios are, with the modern American diet, high omega-6 and omega-9s, but low omega-3s. So I would take just copious amounts, like 3, 4, 5 grams, just in my nature, being this crazy experimenter, guinea pig, until I was literally, TMI, but until I was shitting fish oil, like you could smell it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And now, fast forward to today, I don't take any fish oil supplements because I have a very different perspective on fish oil and taking it in supplement form.
Okay. So for those that don't know, just rewinding it a little bit, what is the
Yeah.
diet?
The paleo diet. So the idea around the paleo diet is to eat in accordance with how our ancestors 12,000, 14,000 years ago would have likely eaten when we had our last measurable physiological change in our evolutionary biology. So the idea is that you eat as close to nature as possible, to summarize it in a simple way. So no packaged processed foods. The core of your diet is animal protein, but also vegetables, fruit, nuts, seeds, things that you'd find in nature and have access to in nature, not something you'd get from a grocery store in a package, or not something that's processed or fried or cooked in seed oils.
Hmm. So is that, are people eating raw meat on paleo diet?
No, the raw meat trend kind of like became really popular a few years ago, and it wasn't a thing. And this in regard to how I approached the paleo diet and how I was educated on it and learned about it. It wasn't about eating like raw steak for every meal like you see today on maybe on social media. It was much more balanced, like having a big salad and have a handful of nuts and you have olive oil, like almost a Mediterranean pesco ovo pescatarian diet you could say would be even considered paleo. And I think the big shift for me was really just cutting out the grains. So not eating wheat and gluten and even rice and corn. When I first started out, I wouldn't touch rice or corn.
Okay. Okay. And what's the reasoning behind rice and corn not being part of that?
Just that grains inherently aren't very digestible in the human gut. So there's something called phytic acids, along with proteins like gluten, which some people, I mean, being gluten free has become so popularized. Everyone knows gluten free, but really gluten is just a protein that is found in grains, along with things like lectins and phytates and phytic acids. And the human gut doesn't have the enzymes necessary to break those things down. Whereas like a bird has phytase, the enzyme to break down phytic acid, and that's why you see birds will often eat seeds or grains, which is what a lot of grains are, is the seed to the plant.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and if you think about it, I mean, we can go into the layers of this, but if you think about how, animals like prey animals or predators have their form of defense to stay alive, like a rabbit can run really fast or jump or has peripheral vision, so it knows if a predator is coming for it and it can get out of the way quickly. Plants don't have defenses like that, so oftentimes they'll create their own defense chemicals within their seeds or their fruit or the plant itself to keep from being eaten, so they can propagate. So that's why things like kale, for example, I wouldn't personally eat kale because of the high oxalate content or other kind of plant toxins you can find in them that can be disruptive to the gut microbiome and the human digestive system.
Yeah. You bring up what you mentioned brought up a really good point is that uh, you know, I don't me personally, they say if you go to Italy or something and you get the grains there and the wheat there, and you eat the bread, somebody who's gluten intolerant here would be able to eat it there. And so it makes me think that it's more related to the chemicals like the Roundup that they're spraying on the wheat and the corn and the rice and things like that, that is what's causing that, you know?
Yeah, there's a very solid basis for that, and I can attest to it from personal experience as well. Yeah, that's true. I remember going back to Italy my first time when I was 18 or 19, and I was like strictly paleo at the time, but I ate a whole margarita pizza my first day there because I was like, oh, I'm in Italy, I'm going to enjoy this. And even though I think because of the amount of bread that I ate, because I hadn't eaten it in so long, it was a bit disruptive for me, but it's night and day. I mean, I've gone back to Europe 3 or 4 times since then, and the way we process grains in the US is very different than how food is processed in Europe. And that has a really big impact. Like you mentioned, Roundup or like pesticides we use on crops having high glyphosate content, and just how we store and keep grains and the mass way we produce them is it's not in harmony with nature, and I think all of that has an impact. And I'm not as strict as I was with my paleo style diet now. I eat in a much more intuitive way. Like I love rice. I'll eat rice, once a day or every other day. I think it's a good carb source, but it doesn't make up the basis of my diet because it's also not super nutrient dense. You want to make sure you're getting those vital micronutrients in your food as well.
Yeah, and in one of the podcasts with one of my guests, we talked about how the reason that supplements have become so important nowadays is that, like, you take an orange, for example, 20 years ago, which isn't that long ago. you know, I was just graduating high school, for example, right? And 20 years ago, we had an orange that you could eat. And now, to get the same nutrient value from that one orange, you need to eat 20 of them.
Exactly. It's insane. And largely that's because of our modern agriculture.
Mhm.
So the nutrients, exactly. So like an orange 20 years ago or 30 years ago would have provided us with, our daily value or maybe 500% of our daily value of vitamin C or whatever it might be on those numbers. And now you might be getting a fifth or a tenth or even like you're saying a 20th of that in that same fruit.
Mhm.
And it's largely because of the way that we produce food in the West and in America and in most developed countries now.
Yeah, and that the fact that we're reusing the soil, and not allowing it to regenerate and to revitalize with more nutrients, with more things that would be really good for us, that in a forest or in a jungle that's so vast and full of all those nutrients, but now they're not in the soil that's producing the majority of our food, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's what I love so much about the paleo diet is it was founded, the basis of the paleo diet is that the earth has its own wisdom and evolutionary intelligence. Like for millions of years, hundreds of millions of years, billions of years, the earth has been here and has coexisted and these plants have been on this planet and there's been a harmonious balance to everything from the top to the bottom and the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
And, the modern lifestyle, when we're so focused on profit and production, that goes out the window. And it's just short-term thinking of like, how can we produce the greatest yield in the shortest amount of time? And no one's thinking about the repercussions of that. At least they hadn't been up until now. Maybe people are becoming more aware of it, but that's exactly why I think regenerative farming practices are so important. And it's just like what you're saying. So we've been using topsoil, and instead of having a regenerative balanced environment where you have animals, eating off the crop and producing fertilizer and everything is going in a cycle that's harmonious and in balance, we're adding chemical fertilizer like nitrogen and the minerals that you need that soil would naturally have if it was in harmony.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't the same. You can't recreate what nature has created over hundreds of millions of years.
Exactly. So I've found for me two supplements, quote unquote. They're from nature. They're not man-made. So one of that really fill in all those trace minerals and all of the nutrients that have been lost in the soil. And one of them is Shilajit, and one of them is sea moss. Can you talk about
Epic.
those?
Yeah, I love that you brought those up, and I love that you brought the two of those up. That's great. Shilajit is amazing. I take a gram every day myself, and I've taken it for well over 3 years, and I honestly couldn't say enough good things about it. It's actually a fun little story I could tell you. It's like an Indian legend around Shilajit. So I'm sure you're familiar, but Shilajit is really popular in the high mountain ranges. You can find it in Siberia and in like the Altai Russian mountains, and also in India in the Himalayas.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two areas where Shilajit is most concentrated, where you can find it. And just so the listeners know, Shilajit is like organic material, plant material, and residue that is compressed between rock and formed over hundreds of years, thousands of years. And so it's really mineral dense. It's full of these compounds like fulvic acids and humic acids and really mineral rich. And so there's this legend that back in the day, hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago, there were villages in India, and there were, of course, monkeys everywhere, as there still are today, running around.
Mm-hmm.
And there was these packs of monkeys that would make the climb and make the ascent up to the top of the Himalayas, and they would forage for the Shilajit. And the villagers noticed that the monkeys that would make the climb and get the Shilajit and would eat it were living longer, were stronger and healthier, and were reproducing at a massive rate, exponentially more than the other monkeys who weren't making that climb.
Mm-hmm.
And so the villagers were like, wow, if the monkeys are doing it and they're getting this benefit, we got to try this stuff. And so they made the climb and found the Shilajit. And it has all these cool names, like they call it the destroyer of weakness or Indian Viagra, because of its profound effect on the human body. One, replacing those minerals that we've lost, but two, just its ability to support testosterone production or even regulate the nervous system. There's some evidence that shows if you're having like a manic episode or a psychotic break, that taking a gram of Shilajit with milk can actually have the benefit of regulating your nervous system and down-regulating that state of psychosis and bringing
Wow,
your brain back into balance.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Wow, that's really amazing. Yeah, I love it. It's so awesome. And I think
Yeah,
85 or more of the trace minerals that our body needs.
right.
I think our body only there's only like 108 that our body really needs.
Exactly. So it's almost perfectly complete, a complete source of minerals.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Trace minerals included, not just like the big ones like magnesium but like the trace minerals. Yeah.
And then if you add the sea moss on top of that, that kind of fills in the gaps, right?
Yeah, you could say that theoretically. I'm not the biggest fan of CMOS, and the reason why is I think it's been overhyped. Of course, there's ocean-based minerals, sea-based minerals that are really good for us. And I'm sure sea moss is like chock full of a lot of those minerals. The challenge I have with it is how quickly commercialized it's become
Yeah,
and sold as this like overpriced, overhyped supplement. People are charging like $30 for a jar of this stuff, at least
I
out here
know.
in San Diego.
Yeah, yeah.
And you
Even
can buy it.
it's like 40 bucks for a little jar.
Yeah, and you can buy a huge bag of dried sea moss and make a dozen jars for a fraction of the price yourself at home.
Yeah,
So for that reason, I have my criticisms around it, and I don't take it myself personally. But I mean, if you notice benefit and you feel like it's good for you, then I mean, keep on. I would just find a source that's clean and organic. Same thing with the Shilajit. You just got to be careful that it's third party tested because a lot of these things can be, they can be adulterated or like not even real Shilajit,
right.
or you can get the product that has like high lead or high cadmium, and you don't want any of that in your body.
Yeah, because with Shilajit, they sometimes will blow up the side of the mountain to get to it, and then that's all in the product. All those explosives and stuff.
Again, see that's this modern approach to like let's just get what we need very quickly
Right.
and even exploit the earth for it and not concern ourselves with the consequence.
Yeah, and the beauty of Shilajit is that it naturally is produced every year and comes out of these cracks and out of the earth, kind of like this like resin, right? And like a little
Exactly.
ooze
Yeah.
that kind of seeps out slowly, and then you can gather it that way very, sustainably. There's no reason to be blowing up mountains because then you're actually stopping the production of it.
That's
And
exactly right.
yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, we're coming back to a very, you know, uh, huge topic, which is that overconsumption, production, and trying to gather as much as possible in as little amount of time, and not really thinking about the planet and the earth.
100%. I couldn't put it better myself. I think that's why it's so important to take a step back and just like, these meditative practices. For me, it's like if I take some deep breaths and I just slow everything down and I realize I'm so much better off if I'm not just thinking about I little me, myself. And if I recognize my place in the world with everything else, in harmony with everything else. There's a Marcus Aurelius quote that I love, and I'm probably going to butcher it or paraphrase it incorrectly, but it's something along the lines of that which is good for the hive is good for the bee.
Mm,
And I love that because it's like, if it's not good for the collective, it's likely not going to be good for me, especially long term.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and we got to think about the future generations and what they're going to be left with, and all the cleaning up they're going to need to do. So it's really important. And so, those two supplements for me are kind of like the go-tos in terms of getting all the main minerals. But I know you experimented with a lot of other ones. So
I've
I,
got tons, bro. If only you could see my supplement cabinet. Now, I'm not on the Brian Johnson level, if I'm taking like 150 pills a day. But I do have a handful that I think are core and foundational for everyone.
yeah, do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, happily. One that I think we've touched on a little bit, and I think people are becoming more aware of, is magnesium. A lot of people in the West are really deficient in magnesium, and I know it's become popularized with like the Calm supplement, and you could take like magnesium citrate for sleep, which is an okay form. I really recommend people look into getting a glycinate and taurate form. So basically, the magnesium is bound to these amino acids, glycine and taurine, which are also therapeutic in their own right and really beneficial on their own. And then attached to the magnesium, your body will fully absorb it and use it, at least 90% of it, if not more. And it's great for so many things. Magnesium is responsible for over 300 enzymatic functions in the body, from muscle contractions to downregulating your nervous system to even creating ATP, adenosine triphosphate, basically the currency of energy with your cells.
Mhm.
So yeah, magnesium I think is not it's like really foundational alongside Shilajit. That's something I recommend everyone take. You can get it's really affordable if you find the right source. Just want to make sure you're getting the right form and that it's pure and clean. Another one that I take every day is a methylated B complex. And I think even if you're eating red meat and you're eating, animal products which have high B vitamin concentration, like we were talking about earlier with modern farming and just our environment with, environmental pollutions and toxins, I think it's good to increase the intake of B vitamins, specifically for metabolic health and for your liver detoxification. And B vitamins are responsible for so much synaptic connections in the brain, and they're water soluble, so they're largely like very, very safe. You could take a good amount, B6 and maybe B1. I would be a little bit conservative, or B3, like too much, but honestly, it'd be hard to overdo it even with supplementation because they're really safe.
Mhm. And so, a quick question I had is that I heard pairing vitamin C with magnesium is really good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could see the benefit there. Vitamin C, a lot of really, it's really cool. A lot of these things work very synergistically.
Mhm.
Like magnesium and zinc together, I think is amazing. But one little caveat I'll add here that I'm not sure a ton of people are familiar with, and I'm glad I recently became aware of, is the zinc and copper relationship.
Mm.
So you don't want to take too much zinc because what happens is if you take zinc without copper, you'll deplete your copper stores in your body, and copper is crucial for oxygen metabolism, for transport of iron in your blood cells. We really need copper in our body, and I think a lot of people are deficient in copper as well. So I take a zinc that's attached to copper, and it's copper orotate, so it's a really good form of copper. And I take like it's like 2 milligrams of copper per 16 milligrams of zinc, and that's a pretty good ratio. I think 8 to 1 or 16 to 2. 16 to 1 is a good ratio, zinc to copper. But yeah, like magnesium and zinc go really well together. I pair my vitamin C with vitamin E because they're both antioxidants. The vitamin C is water soluble, the vitamin E is fat soluble, so you kind of hit it from both ends,
Mhm.
and they support the recycling of each other. So vitamin E will protect your cell membranes and is really good for your heart and really good for your liver and hormones. And the vitamin C is also has a plethora of benefits. Yeah, will help your body recycle glutathione, which is that powerhouse antioxidant that everybody needs. It's like I would say probably the most glutathione in the body is like what goes through and cleans up all the dirt and debris.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know what came through is what about monoatomic gold? Have you experimented with that?
I know you and I have talked about it a bit. I have not taken monoatomic gold myself. It reminds me of those like kind of I don't want to say homeopathic dosing, but like those micro-dosed elements that are really beneficial because they have this frequency that's being introduced into the body. But I personally don't take it.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, I just bring that up because I know that from reading some of the ancient texts and scriptures and things that's kind of what we were brought to. One of the theories is we were brought to Earth to mine that to so that the beings that brought us and created us here, the Anunnaki, they needed that on their planet, and they saw a lot of benefits, and they would actually put it into the sky and into their um, basically into their ozone system on their planet so that it could block the sun and help them live more um, in more homeostasis with their planet. So uh, yeah, I'm really curious if you ever try it and experiment with it. It's Hawaii is one of those places where they bring really pure monoatomic gold from, and there's other names for it, but it's
Is that similar to Ormus?
yeah.
Got you. Yeah, I mean it's fascinating, fascinating stuff. I mean, you know me, I'll try it. I won't knock anything until I try it a few times.
So have you worked with Ormus?
I've taken it once, and I don't know if it was the purest source, so I just haven't gone down that rabbit hole again.
Okay, yeah, Ormus and monatomic gold, they're very very similar. I don't know offhand what the difference is, but I know sometimes they're interchangeable.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some combinations where people will mix like Ormus monatomic gold kind of formulation.
Yeah,
I've even seen it paired with Shilajit, but really for me, honestly, Peter, I like to make this as accessible for people as possible.
yeah.
And I'm like, just stick to the fundamentals. For me, it's like vitamin C, vitamin E, magnesium, Shilajit. If you hit those four, that's huge. Throw a methylated B complex in there. And really, I think it all comes down to mitochondrial health. And I mean, mitochondria are like the little engine in your cell, and that's what's going to help your body create energy and facilitate energy efficiently.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, everything is energy. I mean, we're on the Spiritual Teachers podcast, and it's, from the micro to the macro, everything is energetic communication.
Mhm.
And so if you can support your cell's ability to create and facilitate energy, it's going to help you across the board. I think largely most of the disease that we see in the planet today is because of mitochondrial dysfunction. And everything in our environment is just, it's like slaughtering our mitochondrial health, whether it's modern like fragrances and toxins, these soy candles that are full of, phthalates and parabens and all kinds of other toxins, or whether it's the glyphosate on the food crops, or secondhand cigarette smoke and car exhaust and everything else, indoor living, sitting in front of a computer and a TV screen. It has a really heavy impact. Sedentary lifestyles, fried food, seed oils, all this stuff has a heavy impact on your cell's ability to create energy and transfer energy efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So for what else do you recommend for mitochondrial health?
Red light infrared panel. I'm pointing because I have my panel in front of the computer.
Uh,
Yeah, the red light infrared light panel. Honestly, if you pair, something I like to do is take my gram of Shilajit, my methylated B complex, and then flip my red light infrared light on. And then you mentioned methylene blue. Something I used to do a lot more often, I don't as much anymore, is I would take like maybe 5 milligrams of methylene blue. So like 10, the formulation I have is in drops and they're in microgram per drop. So I do like 10 drops, you get 5 milligrams. And yeah, the methylene blue paired with Shilajit plus a methylated B complex and the red light panel, you're just supercharging your mitochondria.
mm,
I don't think you need any kind of artificial stimulant at that point.
okay. Okay. So what, I mean, methylene blue is something really new in the supplement world, uh,
Yeah.
comparatively, right? It's
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
it's comes from, well, I mean, I'll just share the little bit I know.
Yeah, please.
Comes from a indigo dye for pants, right? Originally.
Yeah, that's right. It was used as a textile dye. Yeah, that's right. And so it's synthetic by nature, which is another reason why I don't personally take it like on a daily basis. And I've started to cycle it. I use it less now, but I always keep some in my cabinet because it's a really fascinating compound. Um, yeah, so it was the first synthetic medicine used in the United States or in the West, and I want to say mid 1800s is when it was made, and it was used to treat soldiers in World War II after being used as a textile dye. They used it to treat all kinds of things like infections and malaria and all kinds of illnesses, and it had tremendous benefit. And so now, even today, if you go to the hospitals in the U.S., they always have methylene blue in a hospital because there's some really great use cases for it, including like treating septic shock. And yeah, methylene blue is really fascinating. So it was used as a textile dye. It was popular in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Then it was kind of pulled off the shelf and forgotten about completely. And there was this resurgence on its use to repair damaged mitochondria and healing the mitochondria, and as like a brain cognitive supportive nutrient or chemical and compound, I guess is a better word for that. And I first found out about it in 2019. And right around COVID, like 2020, I was like, wow, this is some fascinating stuff. I got to try it. Me being me, anything new and fascinating, I got to get my hands on it.
Yeah.
So, especially when it comes to supplements. So I actually went through transcriptions back in the day. They had just come out with it, and it was like this. They called it blue canatine. It's a troche that you stick in between your gum lining. It's a little square, and it's like 2.5 milligrams of methylene blue with a couple milligrams of nicotine and I think a small amount of CBD. And it was supposed to be like the perfect brain enhancing, focus enhancing thing. And fun fact, when I was like 15 or 16, I watched the movie Limitless in theaters, and I became absolutely obsessed with recreating that. So anything to boost my brain's ability or my focus, I was like, yes, I gotta try it.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's how I first found out about it. And I like back then you could like stack the discount codes, so I just ordered a bunch of it. And I had like 5 boxes of these troches, and I would use them like weekly, if not daily, for a while.
Wow. So
Yeah.
when you would take one of those, what was the effect for you?
Green pea is one of the noticeable
Oh,
effects. But really cognitively, yeah, more focus. It's kind of like having, I don't want to compare it to coffee or caffeine per se, because it is a bit different. But yeah, and too much of it I noticed would actually make me a little bit like almost edgy because it kind of has that chemical thing. I mean, I've heard people describe the difference between LSD and psilocybin, although they're very similar, like molecularly and chemically. LSD tends to have a more edgy chemical feel to it, and psilocybin has a more earthy, grounded, like herbal feeling to it.
mhm.
And that's kind of my sense with methylene blue. They can kind of have that sort of edgy, awakeful stimulant side of it, which makes sense with like the methyl part of the molecule, and it's it has that sort of nature to it. But I would say like a clean, focused energy, and really what it does in the body is they consider it a redox agent. So it'll donate electrons to your body as it needs it. So your body can utilize an extra electron to keep its electron chain running efficiently. And oftentimes, if there's a damaged cell or a damaged mitochondria, it'll need that extra electron. And methylene blue very efficiently will donate that.
Okay, yeah. So that's fascinating. It's fascinating, and what I what I mean, I gotta ask, right? You see these pigs on Instagram. They're all like that blue color that you see, and it dyes your tongue, right? And like some of my friends, when they take it, their tongue is bright blue, like the color of a Smurf
Smurf.
for
Yeah.
for the whole day. And
Yeah.
so if it's dyeing your tongue, it's probably dyeing your organs and those kind of things. So it makes me, and then you're peeing out green. Obviously it's going through your system and having some impact like that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so on one side, I know it's been super sensationalized in social media. Like there was even a big influencer, I won't drop his name, but posted like a picture of the brain that's like totally deep blue. And it's like, this is what methylene's blue is doing to your brain. It's turning it blue. Well, first, and I think most importantly, where that picture was drawn from is a study they did with methylene blue on dead tissue. So it was not in a living brain where you have blood flow and oxygen and all the natural fluids in the human body flushing things like a cycle. It was dead tissue. And two, it was done through an IV with copious amounts of methylene blue, way more than anybody would ever take in a supplement form. Like I would literally have to drink my entire bottle, and I still don't think I would hit that mark of how much they gave or put into this tissue using an IV.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and second to that, I like to kind of equate it to like beets. Like, when you eat beets and you have red pea, of course, there's a natural coloration to eating beets, a totally natural, vegetable or fruit, or root vegetable, beets. I'm not sure if they're a fruit or vegetable, but they're a
I
totally
think they're
natural thing.
vegetable. Yeah.
Vegetable, right? Yeah. And the red, the red coloring is just kind of a byproduct of consuming that, but it's not inherently dangerous. So
Mm-hmm.
just because my teeth or my mouth are blue temporarily for a few hours or my urine is green, I'm not super concerned like, oh my God, this is like dyeing my tissue. Again, because my tissue in my body's alive, so it'll use that and flush it. And actually, methylene blue has been used medically specifically to dye tissue so they can see it with certain kinds of radiograms and yeah, like medical imaging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting perspective for sure. And uh, why have you weaned off of it lately?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I weaned off of it because I was never really like hooked on it, but I definitely cycle it for sure. I don't take it as much specifically because I don't personally feel the need for it every day. And I think it is something that's healthy to cycle because it is not totally natural. It's a synthetic chemical. That's kind of my own theory behind it, and I just noticed my body feels best not taking it every day.
Mhm.
And so it's something that I would keep in the medicine cabinet specifically for like long days of travel or like jet lag, or if I'm feeling sick or I'm fighting an illness. I think it has great use cases for those like acute situations. That's when I think methylene blue is best used. And yeah, I would usually pair it with something like Shilajit and a B complex and a red light therapy or a lot of sunlight outside. But I would take it in small doses, and yeah, it definitely has its place. But it's not something that I recommend as like a first line supplement, or I think everybody needs to be taking all the time by any means.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Beautiful.
Also, it just came through my mind. I thought I'd mention it also has some slight MAOI effects. So monoamine oxidase inhibition. So basically, you have an enzyme in your liver that helps break down active constituents of certain compounds.
Mhm.
So for example, like I'm sure many people listening to your podcast are familiar with ayahuasca.
Mhm.
The ayahuasca vine, they pair it with the chacruna vine, they pair it with an MAOI so that the DMT can be active in your bloodstream. So similarly, methylene blue has a very small, like slight mild MAOI effect. So that's another reason why I caution people for using it if you're taking any, especially if you're taking any kind of prescription medication or any kind of like psychedelic, serotonergic psychedelic like psilocybin. You just want to be careful because you could be increasing the concentrations of that in your body to a degree that you wouldn't want.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's a really good point you have there. So basically, if you're taking something like a microdose of mushrooms or something, don't take it with methyl blue because it could take you on a full journey.
It could potentiate the effects. Yeah, and with a microdose, you probably wouldn't notice anything too crazy, but I like to err on the side of just of carefulness, especially with those kinds of things that are changing your pathways in your brain and affecting your serotonin receptors.
Mhm.
Really, the concern would be with prescription medication, any kind of antidepressant or even like stimulant medication. You want to make sure that methylene blue is flushed through your system. Give it at least a week, 3 to 5 days, but a week to be really safe.
Mhm. Okay. Have you ever had it like blue urine from it?
Not blue. It's actually what's really cool. I love about methylene blue is that there's this kind of idea, and it's founded in some science and research that your body will uptake and use what it needs, and what it doesn't comes out in your urine. And so if you have really stained urine, it usually signals to you that you don't need it. Like your body didn't really need it, so it flushed it out.
Mhm.
And when I've taken it, I've had green urine, probably because I also take B complex, like a methylated B complex, which will make your urine neon yellow.
Right.
So the combination, it'll come through greenish, like a tinge of greenish blue, but never like strikingly blue urine.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's fascinating. I've never tried it before, so I'm very interested in
I
that.
got you, bro. I'll send you a bottle.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm hesitant because it's not from nature. It's
Right.
man-made, and I've been very adamant about sticking to. You've offered it to me before, and and I was like, I don't know, bro. I gotta look into it more. But
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And like that's why I think it's good if you use it within like acute situations and for particular use cases. I don't think it's something you need to take every day by any means. But it's really fascinating and it's a pretty safe molecule across the board. Unless last disclaimer I'll drop on methylene blue, unless you have G6PD, which is a genetic variant, which it can cause hypothalassemia, I believe is the proper medical term. But basically, it can have a disruption with the way your red blood cells carry oxygen and produce hemoglobin. So that is probably the most concerning aspect of it. So I would be careful with that if you know you have a history of like if people in your family have G6PD genetic variants, something to look out for. But otherwise, it's really safe.
okay, okay, yeah, that's a great precaution. Uh, okay, so what about nicotine?
Nicotine, let's talk about it.
Talk about it.
Yeah, man, it's so controversial, of course, because I think the way we're most familiarized and accustomed to nicotine is in the form of cigarettes and tobacco, which I think also has its place. Like if you think about indigenous cultures in Peru, South America, even India, the Middle East, tobacco has its place. Ancestrally, there's a lot of tribes that'll gather and treat tobacco as a very sacred plant medicine, and they'll gather in circle and they'll share it, whether it's their pipe or their mapacho or however they're choosing to have it, but it's done with a lot of reverence, a lot of care. And again, the tobacco is hand harvested in these really beautiful regions of the world where they're not using pesticides and all their kinds of agricultural components that tend to damage and change the structure of what you're consuming. So that's one side of it. But of course, there is that caveat. You're lighting something on fire. There's combustion. You're inhaling smoke. It's not necessarily the healthiest or best way to consume something. And so nicotine, I think on its own, isolated, actually has some very fascinating benefits that are emerging now more recently. People are seeing there's a lot of pro-cognitive effects, for one. So the way nicotine works in the body is that it'll increase acetylcholine in the brain. And acetylcholine is essentially the neurotransmitter and the neurochemical responsible for memory formation and also muscle contractions. And acetylcholine is really fascinating. We hear a lot about dopamine and serotonin. There's not a whole lot of talk around acetylcholine, but you can increase the choline in your body through something like egg yolks. And like egg yolks are really high, have a high concentration of choline. Nicotine will help modulate and kind of augment those receptors and increase the acetylcholine in your brain. So it will improve your memory formation, which is why a lot of people, you'll find people like rolling spliffs. My theory on it, at least, is because cannabis, sometimes it can have a bit of a neurodepressive effect
Mm,
and can affect your short-term memory, whereas tobacco will have the opposite effect of sharpening your attention and focus and improving your memory.
mhm,
And I think that balance is what people are drawn to with the spliffs.
mm,
So you still kind of have this wakeful alertness. And so nicotine will give you, it's a stimulant. It functions in the body as a stimulant. It'll increase your heart rate. And with any kind of stimulant, any kind of compound, you want to take care with how you're using it. And I think the relationship to the substance is very important. But in general, now there's more research coming out to show that there's a lot of benefits to nicotine. One with memory formation and cognitive benefit, but also preventing things like dementia and Alzheimer's, and even possible evidence pointing to the possibility that nicotine will help clear plaque, amyloid plaque in the brain.
Mhm. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. You know that one of my main medicines is Hoppe, and what I recently found out is that with Hoppe, the ideal amount of nicotine is about 2% of the whole
Of
of
the
the
formulation.
yeah, of the whole formulation. So for those that don't know, Hoppe is a tobacco snuff mixed with other herbs. They burn it down to an ash, and then you blow it. You blow it into the nostrils, and it's very grounding and very. There's a lot of presence with it. You kind of have to get into your body and be in your body. It also stimulates the vagus nerve and drops you into your parasympathetic nervous system.
I
So
love that you mentioned that.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's huge because most of society is navigating in their sympathetic nervous system. Go, 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 hustle culture. Like let's get it done. Let's do more as much as we can. And this medicine is there for full presence and for clearing energy. So it's a sacred, it's prayed over, and it's a very sacred medicine. So um, there's definitely nicotine in it. That's why I brought it up, and it's tobacco, but it's alkaline tobacco, and so it affects the body very differently than smoking a cigarette or even a pipe. You know, um,
That's right.
so it's for me, I've found huge benefits to working with that.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned hoppy. I mean, it's been around for thousands of years. I was at a museum with my fiance some time ago, and we went through this, I don't remember where we were, but there's this museum, and there's the whole part of the exhibit where they have these little glass containers of different cultures across history where they would keep this tobacco snuff, hoppe, essentially.
Oh wow.
And yeah, they would carry it with them in these little glass jars. Really cool. And this is like thousands and thousands of years ago. And it does have those, those potential benefits. I think that's why the delivery is so important. Whereas like the combustion and the smoke is one way to, interact with this compound, and other ways are like the snuff intranasally, or like I've been liking it recently is these lozenges that I found that are really clean. And there's no additives or chemicals or fake sugars or anything like that. And I think next to a lozenge, maybe a patch would be like the safest, healthiest form. But really, you don't need a lot. Like you mentioned, 2% of the formulation, you really don't need a lot of this compound to receive the benefits. And so I always tell people, like, there's a difference between having a pack of cigarettes, which most people in the West, their relationship to cigarettes or tobacco is, you don't just have one and that's it. You're compulsively smoking and getting your fix. Whereas with the lozenges, I've noticed I don't have any kind of relationship to it where there's this physiological dependence in any way. And I find I enjoy it, and it's better for my body and my brain if I cycle on and off. So there'll be a day where maybe I'll have 3 to 5 milligrams tops, and then I'll go 2, 3 days without it, and then maybe in 3 days I'll have 3 to 5 milligrams. And I space that out. Like I'll get these 3 milligram lozenges, I'll split them in half, and it's 1.5 milligrams slow delivery into the bloodstream, and I might have a total of 3 milligrams in the day if I decide to have two halves.
Okay, and so is this nicotine taken from tobacco, or do you know?
It's actually synthetic, but the cool thing about synthetic nicotine is that this one specifically is made through niacinamide, which is vitamin B3. So it's still a very natural molecule. The way they make it is very natural, very safe. They don't use any like harsh chemicals to produce it, and it's basically niacinamide, vitamin B3, which is something I also supplement with. And they take that nicotinic acid and they break it down into nicotine.
Okay, okay. And when you take it, you just get a little like boost of energy.
Yeah, like for me, it's like a slight buzz, slight wakefulness, sharper thinking. I'll put one in right now as we're talking. And it's yeah, just kind of like slightly wakeful, helps the memory formation and focus, clarity. Yeah, it's good. It's a nice gentle stimulant.
And it just melts.
Exactly. It just melts in the gum lining and dissolves over like 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Cool. Yeah, I don't know a lot of people. I've actually never met anybody else that I know of that takes something like that. But yeah, it's It's
It's
interesting.
cool, bro. I mean, I have an interesting relationship with nicotine. Stimulants in general, I've always been drawn to stimulants. Caffeine, I love caffeine. I can go on about why I love caffeine, but I also take breaks from these things. It's not something that I like to rely on. And for me, I think that's what's so important is our relationship to these compounds, how we're using them. I met this guy in Costa Rica, really cool human being I met on my travels in 2021, and I was rolling up a little tobacco smoke for myself and offered to share it with him. And he sat down with me and he shared with me, he had spent some time with some tribes in South America. And he said, maca y maca. And his translation of this was, and I've since looked it up to try and find it, like where it originates from, but I couldn't find it. But maca y maca, and his translation was basically poison and medicine. The difference is in your intention and how you use it.
Yeah.
And I love that. I keep that, at the front of my mind anytime I use any kind of compound. Is what's my relationship to it? How am I using this thing?
I think intention is everything when you work with any type of medicine or any type of supplement, because I think especially if you speak it into it, right? Like if
Mm,
you hold it and you actually like pray with it and speak your intentions into it, they get infused into it with the vibration of the frequency of your voice and with the intention, and then there's a totally different experience.
that's right. And you're setting the frame for your mind to now bring in that experience. And our minds are so much more suggestible than I think we realize. And I think if we, by entraining your mind and setting this intention and speaking it aloud and speaking it to yourself, you're setting the tone for what this experience is going to be or could be like for you.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, for
Epic.
sure. For sure. It's it's everything. Intention is everything, right? Uh,
Hmm.
so maybe we can talk about sleep protocol and the importance of sleep.
Let's do it, bro. I love sleep.
Me
Who
too.
doesn't like a good night's rest? And I think people in the US need it. Yeah, there's a lot of things that affect sleep. I will talk about what I think sets the tone from sleep from the start of the day, and then we can go to the end of the day. So, primarily, number one is getting sunlight in your eyes or some form of light. The reason why I say sunlight is because it's really hard to recreate that level of lux, just the measurement of light intensity indoors with any kind of lamp. You could get like a 10,000 lux light lamp. I still think the sun is better. Again, nature has its own wisdom. And you've got the infrared, near infrared, yellow, red wavelengths, blue light, all in the sun. So getting outside, I think, within the first 30 minutes of being awake is absolutely vital. And it's become popular knowledge now, but this is something I've done for years and years, and I think something you've also done. Having those sunrise practices and going outside and getting fresh air. I do every morning. I wake up, I brush my teeth, I go down, I hydrate with a glass of water, and I'm like beelining it outside, and I spend my first 5 to 10 minutes at least outside. And sometimes I'll throw in some movement, sometimes I'll just sit and I'll have my tea. But I like to get 10 to 15 minutes outside, even when it's cloudy, and even especially when it's cloudy, because you probably need more time outside to get that same level of light signaling to your brain. So what that does is one signals your body like, hey, it's daytime. Your cells know it's time to wake up. You help support your natural cortisol rise in the morning, your wakefulness hormone, also associated with stress. But you want cortisol. Cortisol is a good thing. It's responsible for so many healthy functions in the body. It's just that you want that spike to happen in the morning and then have a gradual taper as the day comes to a wind down. So morning sunlight really sets the tone for nighttime sleep. And then following that, I tend to focus on having my last meal no later than 6 or 6:30 p.m. and I like to get in bed by 9:30 p.m. And I've found if I eat too early, like 3 p.m., and that's my last meal, sometimes it's great. Other times I'll be maybe a little too hungry and have a hard time falling asleep. But it's also a balance. I think we've gotten so used to just eating anytime we're hungry, and you kind of have to relearn that relationship to that hunger signal.
Mhm.
But I think a really important piece there is how late you're eating and timing that last meal before sleep. Because if your body's busy trying to digest, it's not going to be able to drop into that deep, slow wave sleep that we need. So timing my eating, I'll stop eating by 6:30 ideally, and then I have a wind down routine. So like 45 minutes to an hour before bed, I cut off like all technology. I'm not watching TV. I'm not on the laptop. I'm not scrolling my phone. I have this little red light filter on my phone. I'll just triple tap it. The screen goes red. And then I'll bring the brightness down. And if I need to use my phone, that's the only way I'll use it. And then I'll throw some blue light blocking glasses on. And I'll usually do some reading, some light reading, maybe some like deep breathing to get into that parasympathetic nervous system. And then keeping the room as dark as I can get it. Pitch black is ideal. And then somewhere around 69 to 70 degrees. Research shows that 66, 67 degrees, even cooler, is optimal for sleep. I feel really comfortable at 69. So you kind of have to tinker with that, find your good sleep, ambient sleep temperature. And yeah, that's the basis of good sleep hygiene, I think. Um, and I aim for 8 hours every night. And alongside that, the supplements that I take to support sleep are things like glycine, magnesium, and L-theanine. Those are the three fundamentals. L-theanine is an amino acid naturally found in green tea leaves and other tea leaves, and it just helps bring your brain to that alpha wavelength state, calm your system down a little bit. Glycine is really supportive for the liver, but also downregulates your nervous system and helps your muscle tissue repair. So I take that. I've also noticed some people who've maybe supplemented with glycine, if you take 3, 4, 5 grams, it's really safe, but you'll probably notice that you have very vivid dreams the first maybe handful of times or first few weeks of supplementing with it, which I enjoy. I like having vivid dreams. And then magnesium, again, downregulates the nervous system, really good for restoration, recovery. And then recently I've been taking melatonin, which is happy to talk on melatonin too, because I used to be very weary of it, taking it in supplement form, and was always like anti-exogenous melatonin, and was like, I would only ever take it in the microgram doses, like 500 micrograms, half a milligram, and that would be it. And I would only take it when traveling to set my circadian rhythm to help me sleep. More recently, I've been taking 65 milligrams all the way up to 150 milligrams, even to taking a 250 milligram suppository.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, epic.
Okay, so are you noticing when you're doing these higher amounts of it, are you noticing that you're going into that dream state, or are you just in that like full on just knocked out kind of sleep?
Deep rock,
Okay.
like gone sleep, like the good sleep. Like when
Okay.
you wake up and you're like, wow, I slept. I slept hard.
Right.
Yeah, and melatonin is, I used to think, oh, you got to be really careful taking it exogenously; it'll stop your endogenous production, which has recently been proved not the case. There's a lot of research showing that isn't so, and it's just really supportive for the body. It's a really powerful antioxidant. It's a gentle heavy metal chelator, so it helps your body get rid of heavy metals, and it's found in every living thing in existence. Plant you can find melatonin in plant leaves and plant matter. Every bacterial organism, melatonin is found pretty much everywhere on the planet, and yeah, it's a really wholesome molecule. I heard it described as a very wholesome molecule, and I love that description of it. And yeah, I feel good about it. The only caveat is I would recommend no one under the age of 20 really supplement it regularly, because I think there is kind of like a bell curve signal response effect in the body. Not a bell curve effect, but like a signal response effect in the body with pubescent hormones and puberty. So like
Okay.
they've noticed, like, you're 13, 14, 15, the melatonin curvature of how your body produces melatonin and the signaling of your pubescent hormones has a relationship. So I always tell people, like, wait until like you're done with puberty completely. Wait until you're in your 20s if you're going to supplement with it, ideally, and play around with the doses. You don't have to do mega doses like I do lately. I've tinkered with it and found sweet spots. Like I prefer 15 milligrams over 10 milligrams. I notice if I take 15, I sleep wonderfully. If I take 10, for some reason, I feel groggy sometimes. 65 seems to be my sweet spot lately. And also with melatonin, I'll take some days off just to see how my body's responding without it.
So did you slowly build up to those 65, or did you just one day were like, okay, I'm going for it?
Yeah, I slowly built up in the sense that I took 5 for like several nights, and then I bumped 5 to 15. I took 15 for several nights, and then I just made the jump from 15 to 65.
Okay. And what do you feel, you just sleep deeper when you take the 65 versus the 15?
Yeah, you could probably hear Jaya in the background.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a quicker onset of sleep, I would say, is what I noticed mostly is the quickest onset of sleep from the melatonin, and then it's like just a deep sleep. 15 is great, but also 65, I just wake up feeling so fresh.
Okay.
And
Okay.
knowing the antioxidant benefits and the metal chelation benefits, I'm like, why not? I'll take a little bit extra.
Yeah, I feel the same way that you used to feel, like that I want to be able to try to produce it as naturally as possible. Like if I have a good workout, if I have a good amount of sun that day, then I get really much better sleep. And if I can calm my mind to a place where it's not wandering, then from that space I sleep much better.
Yeah,
Meditation,
that's best.
meditation before.
Meditation before bed.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's best. I mean, I always encourage that first. Modulate your body's own ability first and foremost. I think supplements are just that. They're supplements. It's just that in our modern environment, there is a much greater need for them than I think ever before.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. And yeah, there's a lot of different tools out there to kind of gauge your sleep and to measure it. Are you using any of those?
No, I don't. I mean, I've been curious about like an Aura ring. I just don't like wearing technology or even wearing anything when I go to sleep. I'll take my bracelets off, my watch off, everything's off when I sleep. But yeah, I mean, you can use the Aura ring or anything to really test your HRV, your heart rate variability. That gives like the best reading on your sleep. I was watching a really cool documentary the other day with Brian Johnson, and he was talking about how he achieved a perfect sleep score for 8 months,
Oh wow,
which is like unheard of, like 100 every night for 8 months straight.
wow,
And a lot of what I'm talking about lines up with what he's saying. For him, he has his last meal at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., like really early in the day, but he's also in bed at 8:30. And the other piece there that I didn't mention is having a consistent sleep time and wake up time.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, research has shown that it's really important. If you sleep at the same time every night and wake up every day at the same time, it really just entrains your circadian rhythm and keeps it in sync, and it's really beneficial for the body.
yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That I've read and heard that from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is kind of the peak 8 hours. If you go after 10 or wake up after 6, you're not getting that primo benefit of that.
Primo benefit, yeah, the research corroborates that. That's exactly right. There's some evidence that shows, if you go to bed later than 10 or 11 p.m., the quality of your sleep is impacted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It makes me think about like some of those people that sleep like 3 hours, 3.5 hours. I don't know if it's true, but somebody told me that Hitler would only sleep like 3.5 hours. Einstein slept very little. I think, from what I remember, these people that were considered very intelligent, just had very low sleep scores.
Well, here's my totally speculative take on that. I love that you brought up those two, Albert Einstein and Hitler. Here's my totally speculative take. One, for Einstein, it was also presupposed, or people infer that maybe he was autistic.
Mhm.
And having a son with a neurological condition, I can confirm, anecdotally at least, that with changes in the neurochemistry of your brain or your nervous system or your brain just having a different configuration, there is an effect on sleep. So it's possible that maybe for Einstein, if he reportedly only slept 3.5 hours or 4 hours, his brain was just configured in such a way that there was more wakefulness, more of a wakefulness signal, and less of a dropping into a deep sleep. And then for Hitler, I mean, obviously, again, totally speculative, but who knows? Who's to say that that lack of sleep didn't lead to manic psychosis states or grandeur visions or ideas of what he wanted to do or who he was or what his mission was in this world? Um, it's crazy how much these things are intricately woven into our personality,
Mhm.
from diet to sleep to, our physiological health really has a great impact on our psychological makeup and health as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you mentioned your son, man. This is a good segue to talk about fatherhood. I'm
Yeah.
We haven't really dropped in too much about it, so I'm just really, I moved out of California after you had your son, so I haven't really been around too much with that experience. How's that? Can you share a little bit how that's shifted you, how it's affected you spiritually, those kind of things?
Yeah, man. Well, first, I want to say thank you for gifting us that ukulele. Because even if we don't use it all the time, it's a beautiful reminder of the power of music and the care that you have in your friendship. And yeah, man, we'd love to have Uncle Peter around.
For sure, man. Yeah, I'm
And
happy you guys are using it and you know sharing that music with him.
yeah, man, it's a centerpiece in our home. Like it's in our living room, and it's just against the wall, and it's just this beautiful reminder of frequency and music, and it's beautiful. And yeah, bro, fatherhood. I'm all smiles when I talk about fatherhood now. That wasn't always the case. You know, the first year of our journey with Jaya was really tough. It was riddled with a lot of neuro specialist visits, driving to Rady's hospital and seeing neuroscientists and a lot of back to back appointments and visits in the Western medical system, along with being brand new parents and traversing this journey of raising a son who's non-neurotypical. And yeah, we didn't have a lot of time to process our emotions around it. And it was tough. The first year was really tough, just being new parents. And there was a lot of things that went into that as well, like where I was at in my life and different experiences I was having, sitting in a 3 day ayahuasca ceremony and you know, being, yeah, just all of it. You know, Jaya's condition being news to us because we didn't find out until 4 weeks or so before he was born. And even then, there were so many question marks. We had him at UCSD, and we had a great birthing team, great staff that was there that helped us. The nurses were excellent, the doctors were excellent, and they did an MRI on him shortly after he was born and came back and told us that he had limited white matter in his brain. And it was, I mean, it was shocking, but I think the hardest part was that there was no real definitive answer of what that meant or what it was going to look like.
Hmm.
There's a lot of question marks, and just by the nature of the Western medical system, there's a lot of like precautionary fear around it all as well. Like, oh, he might need brain surgery. Look out for seizures. Look out for this. Look out for that. And it was a lot of like the worst case possible scenarios floating around in our mind, which is tough. You know, being a parent on its own has its challenges. And then when you're concerned that your child might have a seizure and you've got to look out for those signs and symptoms, it just makes it, for me, it was, everything was on high alert
Hmm.
for us. But since then, man, we've traversed all of those things. And I think they really served our growth and they've strengthened our relationship, my fiance and I. And yeah, man, we love him. He is such a, you could hear him hollering in the background. Um, yeah, he's a bundle of joy. He's been so goofy today,
Uh-huh.
and he's just so playful. He just has such a beautiful energy about him. And we've had some really beautiful friends and people in our circles who've just reflected back to us, like, you know, he's here for a very divine purpose. And Allie had an astrological reading done from a friend of mine who's an astrologer, and she basically reflected back that Jaya is just, our son Jaya is just always in the bliss of God,
Hmm. Yeah,
and we love that perspective, and I feel like it's so true.
I love that too.
Yeah,
It
like
really feels like he's holding that unconditional love frequency all the time.
that's it, man. I got chills hearing you say that. That's exactly it. Like he wakes up from his nap smiling. It's the sweetest thing.
I love it.
Yeah, it's the sweetest thing. He's such a bundle of joy, and I'll just share it with you. It's exciting news. We were going to keep it more private, but I'll share it with you here because I know this won't be released for some time. But we're actually actively trying for baby number two.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, it's in the works.
Amazing.
Yeah, man.
Amazing, man.
Calling in more life.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
we'll see what God has in store, of course. Like nothing's ever determined. We never know what's going to come. But having Jaya has been such a gift, man. It's been such a reminder. Today we had him in his shoes, and he has a stander that helps him stand, and these like specially fitted shoes to help him like have balance and keep his feet flat. And Allie was just supporting him and helping him walk and stand, and just seeing him light up, taking a step, is just such a reminder for me of how blessed we are, and there's just so much to be grateful for in every moment. You know, so much that we take for granted. I think. Um, yeah, he's just such a reminder of like how miraculous it is to be able to walk. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this offline a little bit, but there's these technologies now with the iPads where the the kids, you know, back when I was in school, the special ed class was separate. You know, the kids were secluded, and there wasn't many ways to communicate with them if they were nonverbal. And working in with kids in physical therapy for a year, there was all these new technologies and tools that these kids were coming in with, and some of the kids, you know, I would look at them and I would think that they don't really know what's going on, right? They're kind of in their own world. But then when you give an iPad with the letters and with sentences and with phrases, they can fully and completely express what they're feeling and what they want. And that was profound for me. And I yeah, I'm really excited to see if you guys are looking into exploring something like that with Jaya.
Yeah, bro, I love that you mentioned that. Yeah, it's beautiful. You know, Ali often reminds me that you know, we have this idea of what intelligent or like capable looks like in our society.
Mhm.
And Jaya is he's so present, he's so aware. He just shows his intelligence in different ways than we're used to.
Mhm.
And so it's like you're saying, you know, you put these tablets in front of these kids, and all of a sudden they're performing these functions that we'd otherwise underestimate them or expect that they wouldn't be able to do, and it's absolutely amazing. We never know what the human brain and body is capable of, and it's really inspiring for me to hear that. It gives me a lot of hope for the future because I would never want Jaya to be in a classroom or a school setting where he's separate from his peers. And even if he's not like cognitively aware of it, I think energetically, you know, it's like this sense that there's something wrong with you, or other kids feel like, oh, I can't relate with that
Mhm.
child or that person because they look different or they seem different.
Yeah.
And I just see so much of that dissolving, and it just like as a father of a neurodivergent child, it's wild, man. Like it's something that Ali and I never imagined we would it would be our life experience.
Mhm.
And now I have so much compassion. Like I see children when I'm out who are in a wheelchair or have cerebral palsy, and they're like very significantly impacted by their condition, seemingly by the way that we judge that impact. And I just feel so much love. I'm like, man, I want to get to know this special being. I want to spend time with them. I want to sit in their presence,
Mhm.
you know, and any kind of judgment I may have had immaturely and naively and ignorantly, you know, 8, 10 years ago, it's just not there. It's just, there's just so much love.
Yeah. Yeah. It really opened up my heart and really opened me up to, you know, it broke through all these limiting beliefs that I used to have, you know, and it just showed me aspects that I never could have imagined before, you know.
That's really awesome, bro. Such rewarding work.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun. I may do it again. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, man, it's I believe that these things come into our to my experience so that there's different realizations and self awarenesses around it.
That's it, man. That's the game. I feel like I was just talking to my parents about this the other day. I was driving them to the airport, and that was essentially the heart of the conversation was how all of these experiences are serving us as an opportunity to, I don't know if increase is the right word, but to increase or expand in our awareness, to have a greater level of awareness and a greater depth of love or heart, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's from my perspective right now, it seems like there's these different lessons, these different classes, and when you pass one, but they're non-linear. So it's like,
Hmm.
you know, I might be going through a money lesson while you're going through a heart opening lesson while, you know, one of our other friends is going through something else. But the beauty of it is that you may have passed the lesson I'm going through, and our other buddy might have passed the other lesson. So we're all there to uplift and share our experiences. And then from there, we can all continue to grow together in that beautiful, true oneness of the true essence of what oneness is, right? Like just
Yeah, man.
yeah,
You said it. You said it. The oneness is such an interconnectedness. Everything is so connected and so interrelated beyond what we conceive and we can see.
yeah, yeah. It's really profound. I'm 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 in awe every day, you know, and coming back to that was a journey, but being in that awe is amazing.
What a beautiful way to live, you
Yeah,
know, to have that recognition. And like, it's so easy to hear that tagline, like, we are all one. But I think when we really embody that and recognize it in our living day-to-day experience, it's so profound. It's like there is no separation. There's differentiation for sure. And our differences, I think, are something to be celebrated and appreciated and valued and enjoyed. But I think Alan Watts put it perfectly. Differentiation doesn't equal separation.
right,
Yeah. Like you have these different leaves on the tree, you have these different fruits, but ultimately it's all connected. It's one breathing, living organism.
right, right. Yeah, it's pretty profound to get to that, and for whatever reason, it still wants to come through. But you know, for the first time, I experienced what light codes actually look like. And
Tell me more.
when you talk about going out in the sun like we did earlier in the podcast, it's just like with my eyes closed, I could see all of the different um, structure, like different forms and different shapes and different codes, right? That's why they're called light codes coming from the sun, and I believe our skin is absorbing all that. And with the ways that the sun affects the planet, I believe that as the planet is evolving, these codes are being infused into us through our skin and like these microdoses of what we're ready for. And then we evolve, and it might take some time for it to really integrate and to really understand what those mean, right? But it or not, it may be instantaneous. I'm not sure, right? But I thought that was really really interesting. What do you think about that?
Yes, bro. I absolutely love that perspective. And I love the term codes because it perfectly encapsulates it. It's light information. That's how I see it. And as I'm listening to you share that, that's all I was imagining and picturing and understanding is there's information encoded in those light wavelengths and it's being received by our body. And all I can think is how could we ever possibly be bored when all of this is happening? Like the most amazing things. Like I see my niece sometimes and she's like, I'm bored. I'm like, no, you're not bored. You're not paying attention to the amazing happening that's happening all the time. And it's totally fine. She's a young girl, and I mean I was bored at that age too, looking
Right.
for the next thing to be exciting or intriguing or engaging, but it's absolutely mind-blowing. Like there's light codes and everything. If we can see that everything is made of energy and there's this communication, there's this relationship happening all the time within our environment and with this instrument that we call our body, like my ears turning the sounds I hear, the wavelengths of vibration into sounds that are coherent, and my mind is giving that meaning and it structures an understanding within this experience. It's absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, I don't think I've felt bored in probably at least over 30 years
That's amazing.
because I feel like I always have something that I'm excited about.
I love it.
Whether it's a book or just looking at nature, sitting watching the bees, or playing with the dogs or watching the birds. It's just like there's so much beauty in this world, especially if you go like deep into nature, away from all the cell towers and everything. There's just so much to look at and experience.
Yes, bro. I have a question for you because I
Okay.
love that. To me that sounds like being in love with life. And I've had people reflect back to me like, "Man, you just seem high on life." I wonder, and I'm curious what your take is on this, or what it is for you, or what it was that inspired it for you. But was there a shift at some point in your life that led you to that? Was it intentional work? Did you change your mindset, your frame around things? Because I think it's kind of a cure-all, right? Like if I'm satisfied with my waking experience and I'm in love with life, as you're describing, I'm not really going to be seeking for much outside myself, whether it's changing my state or going after something that might or might not be good for me, or being in this like state of anxiety or fear. It seems like all that drops away if I'm present and I'm in love with what's happening.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think there's layers to it for me. But the first thing that comes to mind is realizing that I chose all of it.
Mm. Can you elaborate on that?
So I believe in reincarnation. I believe I chose my parents. I believe I chose every relationship, friends, family, loved one, lovers, all that was at some point chosen by my soul. And then the experiences that I'm having are also chosen by my soul on some level. And so instead of asking, why is this happening? I started shifting it to, what is this teaching me?
Try that on for size.
Right. Right. So that was a huge one when I stopped being a victim of my reality and started to take accountability of every aspect of it was at some level my choice. And
Beautiful.
and then from there, I had to come to the forgiveness and the gratitude and those aspects in all my relationships that were maybe not fully healed at that time. And I had to go through each one, and whether or not I was in communication with these people didn't matter, because it was about how I shifted inside myself. And then from there became a little bit more peace, a little bit less weight. And then there's this compassion piece and an acceptance piece,
Hmm.
right? Where I can find compassion for somebody who's going through something, right? Or um, having some sort of crisis or a more challenging time in their life. And then the acceptance piece is like, okay, this is happening. Am I going to suffer and try to pretend like it's not, or and numb out, or try to avoid facing it? Or can I just accept it fully for what it is and be okay with that?
Those are the codes right there. I think if anyone listening who's, in the midst of struggle or challenge or feeling up against life, everything that you just articulated and shared, it's a perfect way to start to integrate that framework of understanding that I think would really shift someone's life trajectory. It's very similar to what I went through as well. Um, Purposefully looking for ways to find the silver lining or the gold nugget and everything. And I think it's that big shift from victimhood to this is the experience I'm having. How can I meet it in a way that's actually beneficial to my growth and
Mm-hmm.
be grateful for it? And that gratitude piece is huge, as well as the acceptance. And yeah, I mean, I think the Buddha said, all suffering comes from craving and aversion.
Mm-hmm.
This desire for something good or a pleasant experience, or this fear or aversion or resistance to something bad. And or simply put, as you said, not resisting what is and accepting like this is what's happening. I can either suffer and kick and scream, or I can go with the flow and meet it and be with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, and there's a piece with that. I just went through this recently where there's just this deep peace with the acceptance of what is, you know? And from that place, when there's this peace, then from that space there's an opportunity for compassion and for that acceptance that I was mentioning.
I love it. Sahaja,
Yeah,
our natural state.
that's it. That's
That's
it.
it, man. The natural state of being, that peace.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
it's really.
amazing how that underlies everything. There's this Indian proverb. It's something along the lines of the healthy man wants 10,000 things, but the man who's sick just wants one thing, and
Mhm,
it's good health.
mhm.
And I think it's similar with peace. I think peace is such a aspect of well-being. When we're peaceful, we're also healthy in our system and in our relationship to life.
Yeah, and challenges seem to arise often, and it's about how to move through those challenges, right?
Heck yeah. When someone tells me they have a lot of challenges in their life, it to me it's like, wow, God is granting you so many opportunities for growth.
Yeah,
You're getting hooked up right now. You're getting like spiritual vitamins and growth hormone just like by the shovel load. How are you taking it?
right, right.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, and you know when those opportunities come, usually they come from a buildup, right? Like the first level,
Mm.
it's
Like a whisper. Is that what you mean? Like it starts to whisper and then grows
well,
louder?
like the challenges, like first they're like little hurdles, then they get bigger and bigger and bigger, because if we're able to jump over those medium ones, then
Mm.
it shows that we're ready for the bigger one. And and then we've mastered how to jump over that medium one, so now we're ready for a bigger one. And at that bigger one, now we might not do it the first time, but we know that we're capable of it because it's only a little bit more than that last one. And sometimes it, to me, it seems like there's that buildup of like, okay, you passed this level, now we're on to this next one. And it's kind of like school. I call it Earth School that we're in right now, where it's like you got to pass math, addition before you get into multiplication, and but then once you get to multiplication, then you're ready for division, and it's all connected.
I love it. I love that. And it's like, yeah, I think it's like this the spiritual muscle.
Right.
You're building that you're informing yourself, or you're becoming informed. Your brain, your body, your mind, your spirit is learning that you're capable, like you said, capable. I think it's so important. Once I realize I have the ability, the challenges don't seem so daunting.
Yeah, and I believe it's building up to something,
Mm,
whether it's holding space for someone's experience, or the soul's evolution, or stepping into a bigger leadership role in some way or form in your life. It's all benefiting in some
mm.
bigger way.
I love that perspective. It sounds like to me what you're saying is you graduate to a point of being able to be of service, so it ends up feeding back into life.
Right.
And I think life has this, the universe has this kind of harmonious cycle. It's like we graduate and improve in our ability, not so we can be glorified and be the center of attention and have all the riches and all the glory, but rather so that we can now expand that and donate it back to life and reciprocate it back to life and have this sustainable regenerative cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's also about coming out of survival mode.
Mm.
That's a big piece of it, where
I'm
it's
glad you brought that up.
yeah, because in survival mode, when we're in that sympathetic nervous system, it's very difficult to do a lot of these things that we talked about. So using tools like meditation and yoga and hape and things like that to really bring us into that parasympathetic, even if it's just little glimpses, right? Like my childhood was pretty chaotic. So as I became older, having those little glimpses was what kind of started to show me, oh, there's more. There's more of this available out there. There's more peace. There's more joy. Even though I was a very joyful kid, but it just started kind of opening and showing more and more.
I love that. You mentioned getting out of the survival state and tools we can use. And I just wanted to touch on, because I don't think I brought it up last time, but NSDRs and Yoga Nidra. To me, I don't know if you're familiar with Yoga Nidra or NSDRs. I'm sure
Yeah,
you are.
yeah,
Yeah, so I think is like probably one of the most profound and underrated tools that we have available to us for regulating the nervous system. And I think if everyone in the world did an NSDR for 30 minutes a day, even for one day or one week, we would have a dramatically transformed planet.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
just yeah, being able to drop into that regulated state and like calm down and slow everything down and just let go of our thinking, our forward, past, and future thinking, and just be here and really allow the body to do what it does naturally.
Yeah, yeah. I learned a technique through heart math, through one of the heart math guys. Do you know? Have you heard of heart math?
I've heard of it, yeah.
So Joe Rogan had a podcast. I'm just looking it up with Greg Braden. It's one of his more recent ones, and
Nice.
and basically he talks about how in heart math, which is another tool to basically sync the brain with the heart, and he says that when you do this, it improves the immune system. It has all these limitless benefits to doing this, right? And he gives 3 easy steps on how to do this. So I'll share it with you guys. Basically, the first step is to feel your heart. So in a lot of cultures, people put their hand in the middle of their sternum, like in prayer, or when people greet each other, they'll put their hand on their heart in many cultures. And just feeling the heart, just having your hand on it is the first step, and then just bringing awareness to it. Then the second step is exhaling more than you inhale. So if you're inhaling 4 seconds, try exhaling for 6 or 8 seconds. And that just starts to calm the body down. And then the third step is merging and connecting with gratitude, which, love and those kind of things can be different for every person, but gratitude's kind of the same across the board for people, right? And so when you connect to that gratitude and you connect to your heart, then the brain starts to become the guiding force. The heart starts to become the guiding force. The brain is dual; it has the left and the right, but the heart just has, the one non-dual decision maker. And when we make those decisions and when that frequency lines up with the heart and the brain, then we can live in a much more aligned way.
I love that. That was so beautifully broken down and so simply broken down. And it makes so much sense. The way my mind works is like, all right, how is this working and why is it working? And I want to go into like the science of understanding it while also just dropping in and letting it do its thing. But it reminds me very much of Joe Dispenza and his sort of heart coherence. It's very similar of like becoming aware of the heart first. And then, for me, it's like, all right, hand on the heart, I'm aware of this innate biological process that is distinct from my thinking mind or my imagination.
Mhm.
It is what's happening in the present moment. And then it enhances this interoception kind of ability of like, all right, what sensations are happening in my body and where's my awareness, my attention. So it brings it into harmony with the natural functioning of the body and the presence of the moment. And then the breath, you're like you said, you're down regulating into the parasympathetic nervous system. That exhale, it reduces the stress and brings you into that parasympathetic. And then gratitude, I think, is probably the most elevated emotion or one of the most elevated emotions we could feel. And it lines everything up. And how could one not be healthy in that state? I think it's
Right,
amazing.
right.
It's like an easy way to tap into well-being.
Yeah, I tried it with my partner yesterday, and the conversation was just so much more centered and grounded, and we were able to really feel and hear each other when we tried that technique together. So it's really powerful for people that may be in a trigger or moving through some sensations in their body. Just connecting to that simple technique can really,
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
gonna
So
use it.
yeah, man, I think we've had a really powerful podcast. We covered everything that we wanted to this time.
Pure fire, bro.
Yeah, man, it was awesome. So yeah, you're always welcome back on, man, and I'd love to have you on again in the future. And sending you so much love and gratitude, brother. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. Equally, would love to collaborate and continue the creativity together, and I'm so honored to be a guest on the show. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, brother. Until next time, man. Love you.
Yeah, bro. Peace and love. Talk soon.